Welcome to the DJ Staples 93 DJ Roundtable on Twitch.
There's a love that just bleeds in my heart. In my childhood days, we went our different ways, but you knew that we'd never part. Now I'm all alone, and you're calling me home. Your love could never die, and all my roving eyes always led me astray. Coming back home, Scotia, don't walk away, sing. Bring the wind to carry me over, lead me home to this town. Tell me when that breeze is blowing, taking me home to my town. Scotia, there's a magic that fills the air. We are the downtown boys, making all that noise. We live like we just don't care. So we drank our fill for king and country till the last soldier fell. Burlington Betty, you're in my heart forever. I wanna drown in the stories you Scotland before, yeah, where me and my true love will never meet again, on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. On the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome. Big round of applause. There we go. I want to welcome everybody into the room. Normally we do this a little different. We introduce everybody one by one, but we're going to just get to the chase. We're going to go around our little round table panel here. We got Dan, Impressions DJs. For the people that might be watching us for the first time, these three gentlemen are out of the Toronto area. I'm in New Jersey, but from Toronto. Go Leafs. Dan, Impressions DJ for all your local events, weddings, private, corporate. He's your guy. We got DJ Thomas Hall. He's done work for Boom 97. He has a show every day live at noon on Twitch called The Retro Mix Nooner, playing all music videos, which of course he also plays Glass Tiger videos. And last and certainly not least, the most handsome of our group, DJ Mike Harding. He's been around. He's worked at CKFM. He's got the mobile on the road DJ truck trailer. And you can find him in DJ Mike 44 on Instagram. You can reach out to him. But the reason that we're all here, thank you for those of you that are joining us for the first time, and for those of you that have always watched us on your regular Monday nights. The video we just played, of course, that was Glass Tiger. A little bit about them. If you don't know, you've probably been under a rock, but the band formed in 1983. They've won Grammys. They've won Junos. There's 5 studio albums. Alan himself has 3 solo albums. The debut album for Glass Tiger came out in 1986. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I was 16 at the time. Quadruple platinum albums in Canada, gold in the United States. I mean, what more do we have to say about the guest of honor this evening? Ladies and gentlemen, warm round of applause virtually, and of course with Dan on the soundboard. Give it up, everybody, for Alan Frew of Glass Tiger. Alan, how are you, sir? If you got a glass at home, everybody raise it. Cheers. There you go.
Cheers.
Start it off right. There you go. Welcome, sir. So, Alan, what was it like watching that video?
It was rather nostalgic, actually, because that video is live at Massey Hall.
Yeah.
And as you know, one of the most iconic settings for any band in Canada. And you can't see it, but just off to my left here are 2 of the original old chairs, old seats from Massey Hall.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
From the balcony. And Glass Tiger was signed by a gentleman called Dean Cameron, who was the head of A&R at the time with Capitol Records. They went on to become the president. And then after Capitol and EMI were bought out by Universal, he became the head of the Massey Hall group. Mm-hmm. And we had never played Massey Hall before. Kind of strange. When we first came out, we were able to play bigger places than Massey Hall. And then the career goes along and it kind of wanes a little bit. And we couldn't do Massey Hall. And then we got a resurgence, and Dean, along with Dean, we did that gig that you just saw. Mm-hmm. And very, very sadly, Dean passed away from a massive heart attack 2 years ago, and we lost him. So for me to watch that video and think about the song and think about Dean, think about Massey Hall, think about these beautiful seats that they sent to me, that Dean and I had arranged for me to get, it's very nostalgic.
It's easily one of my favorite songs you guys did, and again, being that I am in New Jersey, love to see the Toronto, what's the word I'm looking for? Iconic, places.
Landmarks.
Thank you. Landmark.
They've actually, they revamped it. They put a ton of money into it, and they're relaunching or have.
They did. Yeah, they had Gordon Lightfoot come in and
Mike, that's the thing. Dean and I met for lunch, and he was showing me the renovation. He's the guy that spearheaded that whole thing, And ironically, they were auctioning off these chairs. And I said to Dean, keep me one. I want to purchase one. And of course he said to me, Alan, I'll give you one.
Right.
And poor Dean never saw the end of the renovations, and we lost them. And Massey Hall was kind enough to actually send me two of them up to the house. So
That's fantastic.
Very nice. Very nice.
Did you ever get seats from Maple Leaf Gardens?
Did I get a seat from it? No, I did not.
No, I asked because I know you wrote a song for the Leafs, and I was wondering if you were a Leafs fan as well.
I am a Leaf fan, but no, I didn't go down that road trying to get seats from Maple Leaf Gardens. No.
Too many painful years of being a Leaf fan to.
Too many.
Oh, I think we can all agree this group.
Too long but too soon, Brad. Too long and too soon.
Too long and too soon. So, Alan, let's take a step back, right? So, for those that don't know, born in Scotland and moved to Newmarket, I think, as a teenager when about 16 years old, correct?
Correct.
What, growing up, what kind of music influence did your parents have on you? What were they listening to? Were they listening anything in particular that, like, hey, it's not bad?
I never really got influenced by my parents, as far as the music they were listening to, unless it was subliminal. I know I got influenced by my dad as a character and as a singer. He would put on little shows in the house for all the uncles and aunties and all the kids gathered on the floor and stuff. But I found my own way with probably along with my older sister, my big sister. It was the Beatles. Everything was the Beatles. With smidgens of Herman's Hermits and the Rolling Stones and early Rod Stewart. But everything was Lennon and McCartney for me from the time 1964 onwards.
So when you heard, go ahead.
Sorry, you said you came over when you were 16?
Yeah, I came over in 1972.
And when you came over, were you already into music at that time, or?
Again, my dad sort of influenced me, so I would get up in front of the class, get 2 or 3 guys, and we would do air band Beatles, and we'd sing for the class. I get my first little guitar by the time I'm about 14, dabbled on it a little bit, brought it to Canada with me. I met a guy, Martin Ridgely, who then teaches me a few more chords on guitar. And then he and I start going out and playing weddings and bat mitzvahs and funerals and whatever we could. And that's when I sort of get influenced to perform. But I never really thought about joining a band until actually it was a Wednesday night and the Leafs were playing Montreal.
Oof.
And I was glued to the television. And my mum said, there's 5 scruffy guys at the door. And some guys had heard me singing at a party and wanted to know if I'd like to audition for the band. And I really said yes, just to get rid of them.
And is that the band you've been with over 30 some odd years?
No.
Right?
So the poor bastard that was the lead singer, he was told there was no rehearsal that night. And they invite me down and they ask me, what do I know? And I say the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
So we play Get Back. Yeah, and I can see in my peripheral that they're already going, oh, we've got to get this guy kind of thing. And so I joined the band and it was called Onyx. And we play the bars. And as you know, in those days, it was incredibly vibrant. There was tons of places to play. You could go on the Snowball Trail and do all kinds of things. And we just starved. We played till starvation took over. And so the band imploded. And then I decided, for some silly reason, that I thought I could be a doctor. But of course, I had no money. Couldn't afford to go to medical school. So I ended up working in factories, but bugging the local hospital for a job. until finally one day they offered me a job as an orderly. I got that job as an orderly, and then I got a job as a pathologist assistant, and I assisted in autopsies for the best part of 4 years.
Oh, wow.
I became a registered nurse. I went back to college and took my RN.
Mhm.
And then in the middle of that, I get a call from the old bass player who's now dabbling with these other guys.
Yeah.
And he says, you know, come up to a rehearsal. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. And he said, okay, please. So I show up. What do you know? I said, oh, fuck it. Let's do the Beatles. We do Get Back by the Beatles. And the other guys are like, oh, gotta get this guy as the lead singer. And I say, okay, here's the deal. I'll do it, but I'll do it as a hobby because I'm going to be a doctor. I'm not going on the road. And that was the beginning of Glass Tiger.
I'm glad you didn't become a doctor.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I saw online not too long ago, you actually posted your diploma from Seneca for your RN. So it's always good to have something to fall back on, right?
Yeah,
Just in case,
I'll still fall back on it.
just in case that music thing doesn't pan out. You know, it's always good to have that to fall back on. So was the band? What was it? With the bands, there was Onyx and then the End, and that's what eventually came together.
Yes. So my band was Onyx. We imploded. There was another local band called The End. They sort of take over and do their thing in the local area, and then the best of the two get together, and it becomes Glass Tiger.
Now, before it was Glass Tiger,
it becomes Tokyo, and we changed the name to Glass Tiger.
Yeah, it was Tokyo and then Glass Tiger, right? Yeah.
Did you ever think that Glass Tiger would be so ingrained in pop music? I mean, the era of the 80s is huge again, still, always has been.
Mm-hmm.
And Glass Tiger's right in the thick of it. Like, right? Like, did you ever think that would happen?
No. I just knew that we were dedicated. Our idea of going out on a date with any girls was like, hey, girls, you know, I like you. You can come to rehearsal and wait till rehearsal's finished. And then maybe we'll catch last call for a drink.
Right.
And we were dedicated to the band. So I knew that we were hardworking. I knew we were good. We started playing the bar scenes, and people started lining up to get in the bars. By Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the bars were jammed. And then record companies start showing up. You know, you get yourself a manager. We got a manager, and record companies started showing up. So I knew that we had all the parts. It wasn't until we'd actually recorded Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone, the final version, and I had Thin Red Line and a cassette in my pocket on the plane flying back from Vancouver, that I remember thinking, please don't let the plane go down just yet.
Not yet.
I want the world to hear this because I think it's really, really good.
Sure.
And that's about as far as I took it.
When you were playing in the clubs, who were some of the artists that you actually sang? And did you get to meet them in person, like the guys that you started covering? Did you ever meet them later on in your career?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Well, Simple Minds, we covered them, and yes, I met them. Duran Duran, covered them. Yes, I met them.
How was that?
Duran Duran?
Yeah, meeting Duran Duran.
If you want the story, I've got a very kind of funny story about the whole thing. If you want me to give it.
Love it.
So when we landed in Germany to do some major promo, and we were on the Autobahn heading from, I think it was like Frankfurt to Cologne, to do this TV show in Europe. And TV shows in Europe are bizarre, the way they do them. And so we were in the back of the car, and I was saying to the record rep, who's on the bill? And she'd say, well, we've got Kevin Costner.
Right.
And then we've got Olga and her dancing dogs, some lady that has little poodles that dance, Janet Jackson, and then we've got Heinrich, the lumberjack,
some guy that can carve into trees, and then he can cut the tops off of beer bottles without even chipping the glass.
Oh,
Wow.
And Duran, and I said, "Oh fuck, Duran." I said, "We're big fans.
yeah.
We'll have to meet them." So when we arrived at we were on the same label. So when we arrived at the TV station, I saw Simon Le Bon at the stage door signing autographs, and there was hundreds of kids there, right, teenagers. And I thought, oh man, one day.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, they all turned and they went, Glass Tiger.
Wow.
Oh,
And they came
wow.
away. So I could see Simon Le Bon going, who the fuck is that? So we get in the studio, and we asked if we could meet them. And we're told, well, you can get maybe 30 seconds to a minute in between hair and makeup. And I said, oh, fuck that.
Screw you,
I
Simon.
don't need to meet them that bad. If they don't want to say hello, fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they go on and they do, it was all during, it was the new period where they had just come out of, they split up, and then they kind of had the one that they did with Robert Palmer, and then they got back sort of together.
Yeah, Power
So
Station.
they did a song, not sure which one it was. It wasn't like Hungry Like the Wolf or anything like that. So we go on and we do Someday. And then time goes by, and they go on and do something else. And we go on and do Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone. Until finally the record rep comes to the studio and says, the guys want to know if they can come in.
How they?
And
She
say,
said
"Well,"
no.
Tables were reversed, kind of thing.
so they come in, and it was very, very nice. We all met. And eventually, who's the bass player?
John.
Roger Taylor? Is it? No, he's
John Taylor.
John Taylor.
John Taylor actually used to hang out a little bit in the studio in LA when I was doing solo stuff, and I got to know him a little bit. And so yeah, I've met a lot of bands, probably quite a few that we covered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you ever open up or like be on the same bill as some of the guys that you? Because that's got to be something when you're starting out in the
Covering
bars.
their songs.
Yeah, I used to do
Guys
I
that
want
influence
you,
you.
you want me, dum, 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 I need you, and then ended up meeting Cheap Trick, and we all became
Ah,
we hung out,
Nice.
and we did shows together, and that was great.
so cool.
Yeah, so it's I mean, I used to watch Rod Stewart on the television when I was a young boy, and then there I am, his pal, and hanging out with him, and then we do My Town together.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. Yeah.
And we're in the vocal booth together, and it's a big deal when you.
Sure.
How did that come about? Like, how did that? Like, you guys were friends, or like?
He came up to. I was managed for a very brief time by a guy called Randy Phillips. Steve Phillips managed Rod Stewart, and Rod just happened to come up for one of the Junos, and there was an after party, and they told me he would say hi to me, and I'd get maybe 5 minutes with him, and I said, sure, that'd be great. But it turned out that because of the band and my Scottishness and my love of soccer and football,
Yep.
we ended up hanging out for 2 or 3 hours. And there's again a very funny story attached to him thinking he was the first person ever to sing at the Sky Dome, which was actually me. And so the award that we gave him that day, he gave it to me. He signed it, and he said, when you come down to LA, give me a call. Oh, fuck, it's Rod Stewart, Jason Murphy. But I did. I called him, and we used to hang out, and I'd go watch him play football. And so finally, when we wrote My Town, I never played that card. I would never ask him to sing My Town. That was not why we were friends.
Sure.
So there was another singer was involved, and I happened to be out for dinner that night with Rod. The two of us were having dinner when this English guy came in. I forget his name, and I said, "Oh, there's so-and-so, Peter somebody," and he came over and, hey, Rod, hey, Peter. And it was the guy that said to Rod, have you heard the song he's written about Scotland? I sang on it today. And Rod said, no, I haven't heard that. And we had small talk and he left. And then Rod said, why the fuck did you not ask me to sing on it?
Yeah.
And I said, well,
Yeah.
I didn't want to play that card.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I want to sing on it. And I said, well, okay, well, you can sing on it then.
Yeah. You're not going to tell Rod.
Yeah.
And
All
that
right, I
was
think
it.
you're good for the song, Rod.
That was it.
Yeah,
And you also worked, and there's a question in the chat here. I'm just trying to scroll up. You've also, of course, worked with Brian Adams.
Yes.
So the chat was asking how did that come about, and do you still keep in touch with Brian?
Brian and I text each other occasionally because he's a Chelsea supporter.
Ah.
I'm a Glasgow Rangers supporter, but my favourite English team is Chelsea. So when Chelsea's in their big games and stuff like that, Brian and I text back and forth. I haven't seen him in a long time, but we stay in touch. And how did he get involved? Jim Valance was the producer of The Thin Red Line.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim and Brian are co-writers of all the classic stuff that you know for Brian and other things. And so when Jim was producing us, Brian would stay in touch. I'd never met Brian. I didn't know him. I knew of him, but I didn't know him. And then one day he popped into the studio because he was in Toronto. And he popped in and we all met each other and we had a few beers, too many. And Jim said, why don't the two of you go on the microphone and sing? And Brian and I looked at each other and went, okay, let's try that.
Right.
And we went in and we did it. And the rest is history. It was on Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone.
Yeah.
It's always amazing to me. Like, people always, you always want to know, well, how did that collaboration come and how did that happen? And you think it might be just this big, huge story. Not that it's not a big story, but it comes about a little more organic than organized.
And,
you know what I mean?
and usually if you ask managers, you'd get blanked. They would dodge that. But when it's just you and your pal, like for Rod Stewart to say, Alan, I want to sing on the song, who's going to stop him doing that? His manager?
Right.
No.
Right.
But if you go to his manager and say, do you think Rod would sing on my song? He'd tell you to take a hike.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned in the song, My Town, do you say Burlington Bailey or Burlington Bay?
No, I say Burlington Bertie, Bertie.
And what is that? What is that about? What is that reference?
So Burlington Bertie was an old vaudeville character from the 1920s. And I believe the first Burlington Bertie was actually played by a woman. And it's the classic tramp, the top hat and the tails, but gloves with no fingers and hungry for a bite to eat. And she used to come out dressed as a man. And the song was, I'm Burlington Bertie, I rise at 10:30. And I'm Burlington Bert. So it was an old vaudeville thing. So my dad used to impersonate Burlington Bertie when he put on his little shows with the kids and all the drunk guys that would stagger in with him from the pub and my aunties and all that kind of stuff. So my dad would go into the kitchen and get his working cap on and a little scarf, and he would take the poker from the coal fire, and that would be his cane. And I would say, ladies and gentlemen, at great expense, the one and only Burlington Bertie. So when my father passed away, well, actually, before he passed away, I wrote the song. And I said, Burlington Bertie, you're in my heart forever. I want to drown in the stories you tell. And that's my dad.
Very nice. Nice.
That's great. That's fantastic. Now, when Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone comes out, I remember where I was, and great song. And then you hear Brian Adams sing on it. What was it like for you to hear your first single get radio play?
It was, I did a thing for Boom, actually, where they asked that.
Yeah.
And
they got that from me, by the way.
Oh, did they?
behind the vinyl.
That's right.
So it was amazing. The hype was heavy, and all the radio stations were told you cannot play it until 5 p.m. on whatever day it was. And so my dad had an old stereo, and we tuned that to one station, and we had a transistor radio, and we tuned that to another one, and we borrowed a couple off the neighbors. So we had them all set to different stations. But of course, about 5 minutes to 5, somebody got the jump on it because they wanted to be first. And so it started playing, and then another station, and it became this cacophony of noise in the house. And it was wild. And the manager kept phoning, and he would say, "You've just sold 6,000 singles at Sam the Record Man." And then he called back and he'd say, "It's 12,000. And of course, this was going on and on.
Yeah.
Sold 100,000 in short time, and it was the fastest selling single in an album and shit like that in Canadian history. And it was heavy. It was heavy to be a young, much younger man listening to this on the radio. It was a big deal, you know.
Did you know at that, like, was it that moment that's when you knew things were going to happen?
Well, you get calls from the record companies, and then they start saying, "Get down here, you've got promo to do, and Alan, you've got to go to New York." And all of a sudden you're like, "What?" And then, you know, you're in New York, and then I did 3 months with the head of A&R, just going from, you know, it sounds sort of romanticized when you say breakfast in Baltimore and lunch in Cleveland and dinner in Philadelphia, but it's a grind. And I did that for 3 months, setting up the album, and then, you know, get ready. It happens, and we get the tour with Johnny, and we get the tour with Tina Turner, and that was it.
And you toured with Tina Turner as well, is that right?
Yeah, for 4 months all through Europe.
You know, I want to ask you a question about Tina Turner. How long does it take her to get her hair right? No, we're not going to do that.
Of all the questions.
Well, you've toured with some heavyweights for sure, and I've got a list: Roxette, Journey, Tina Turner, Rod Stewart, just to name a few. Who would have been your most favorite memory on tour with? Or maybe I'm missing somebody.
Probably my favorite memory is with Steve Perry and Johnny.
Yeah.
Because it was the first one, and there was just something magical about it. Tina was amazing. It was a great tour. But if you talked me into picking one, it would probably be that Journey tour, just because it was the first one, and it was really special.
Yeah. That's a huge. I think it was 80, 83?
86.
86. Wow. Is there any fun stories from those tours that you can share?
You know, we used. So Johnny, they took the stage for about the first 2 sound checks, and we didn't really get a sound check. We got a little line check, but they promised us that once they were settled, they wouldn't need any more sound checks. And so they gave us that stage every day for those sound checks. And we used to use them not only for sound checks, but sometimes we would use them for writing other songs. And Steve and Neil fell in love with a song called Someday, Glass Tiger Someday. And one day I was doing sound check and I was singing out, and I didn't realize that they had switched the guitar player and the drummer. And when I turned around, my drummer was Steve Perry, and my guitar player was Neil Sean.
Oh, that's not too shabby.
Oh, wow.
It was great. I wish we had iPhones.
Yeah, any kind of footage of that is that would be amazing.
Now, we had a question in our chat asking if you had anything to do with the Rangers selecting Tina Turner's song as their theme song. They went with "Simply the Best."
No, I didn't have anything to do with that, but I've been at Ibrox on many an occasion when it's played, and I love it. I am a Glasgow Rangers fanatic, and I love that Simply the Best is played at Ibrox.
Now, we interviewed Drew Arnott from Strange Advance, also a good Scottish fellow.
Mhm.
You guys seem to have a lot of connections, and the Rangers, I think, is it his dad that's the Rangers fan as well?
You know, I'm not sure because we've never met, but I am Strange Advance, Worlds Away is in probably my top 50 playlist songs of all time.
That's a great one, yeah.
Definitely.
I love that song. We've never crossed paths, but I am a fan.
I'll introduce it to you. Don't worry.
Okay.
I got you.
Staples will make that connection for you. He's got it.
Yeah. I'll be the bridge. Now, but because he was on, he was very nice. The two of you are on the Heroes album, which is the Spoons tribute album.
Okay.
When we talked to Drew, he was like, "Yeah, Gord called me up, said, can you do a song or two?" And here we are. You've got a couple songs on that album as well.
On the Spoons, I think only one. I think I did
Is
one.
it just the one? Okay. All right. I thought there was more than one, so I apologize. How did that come up? How did Gord call you up as well? Like, hey, Alan.
Same thing. Gord got in touch with me and said, "We're doing a Spoons anniversary, but we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to have other artists perform the songs. Alan, would you be kind enough?" And I said, "Of course. I love Gord. He's a great guy." So
Sure.
I did it.
Cool.
When you guys were touring, the difference from Canada, Europe, United States, did you have that Beatle moment somewhere? Like, would it be that Duran Duran moment you were mentioning when they were, when Duran Duran was there and the girls came over? There's
Oh
that.
yeah, we had a lot of those in all of those places. But if you're looking for that massive kind of iconic moment, there were two Canadian things that come to mind. One was we set off. We were the opening act for Honeymoon Suite,
Oh.
and even played a couple of high schools. And ironically, and I consider the boys pals, but
Mhm.
I'm not saying anything that didn't really happen. Halfway through the tour, it went insane for us. So we were still their opening act, and it got really kind of crazy for them and for us because we exploded. And it's really weird when you're an opening act, but you're sort of, may I say, it's going bigger than the other band. So it was a bizarre kind of a thing. And there were like the West Edmonton Mall and all these things with these crazy, insane teenage moments that, kind of drove me crazy actually, because, I was already a single dad. I had a 9-year-old son at the time, and I'm getting chased by 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds. It was bizarre. But then we had to do this two outdoor shows. One that was sort of a promoter putting it on in a place called Gage Park in Hamilton.
Right.
And we begged him to cancel the show because he didn't realize how insane it had gotten. But he wouldn't let us out of the contract.
Oh.
And it was this little band shell with a chicken wire fence. Well, there was like 20,000 people there at 11 a.m. for the sound check.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
By the time we went on stage, it was like 70,000. And it ended up a disaster. Kids were fainting and getting passed up on the stage.
Oh, my.
And I pulled the plug on the show, and they were throwing chairs at the back because they didn't know why. And ambulances were coming in, and it was a nightmare. And then one that was more organized was they put on a free concert at Parliament buildings in Ottawa, and there was like, I don't know, 110, 120,000 people there, and it was mind blowing to look out at that. It was incredible.
Just as many as right now, actually.
Yeah.
Exactly. What's the largest crowd you guys ever played to?
That would probably be it.
That would be it.
That would be it. We've played festivals that have had, maybe 20, 30, 40,000 and whatnot. But that would be those two that I described to you. Our own had 70,000, and our own again, but it was a free concert. Had well over 100. That was the biggest.
But that's got to be a big thing. You have 100,000 fans. You walk on stage, and all you hear is probably like just the rush and the cheering and applauding and everything.
Yeah, you can actually feel the breath hit you when they all cheer, and it's kind of weird when, as a lead singer, when you kind of move to the right or the left, they kind of just the body language goes with you, so you can see it ripple all the way
through the crowd. Yeah. Are there any songs when you're performing that you start to feel, that you start to get, I don't want to say emotional, but something that every single time that you're performing it, you have that reaction that that you're connecting with the crowd?
I mean, I've been doing this a long, long time, and from the time I walk on stage to the time I walk off the stage, my job is to leave it all there, give you everything I have,
nice,
and connect with you. And I would say I've had a career of that, where my career has been connecting. I mean, there's nights inside your head you might be more into it than other nights. Maybe you're under the weather. They don't know that you're fighting the flu or a cold, or I had my baby niece died. I was on tour with Journey, and I did a show, and I called home, and I could sense with my family something had happened. Nobody wanted to really tell me. And then finally, I got my sister on the phone, and my niece had died. And
sorry to hear
I
that.
still had to go on stage that night. I spoke with Johnny, and they asked me, they said, Alan, if you could just commit to these next two shows, we'll get you out of it. And they got Wang Chung to come in for three nights. I came home. I had to go on stage 2 concerts knowing my niece was dead. Came home, we buried her, and then I had to fly to England, do a thing for the BBC, go to Holland, and then right back on stage with Johnny again. And
right,
so it goes.
Yeah. Were you ever nervous going out on stage at any point, or was that just kind of, you just had the confidence to go?
No, well, I wrote a book called The Action Sandwich, and in that book I describe, I had a horror show when I was younger. I used to always feel like I was going to vomit. I'd gag, and it was horrible. And I tried to solve it with medication, and it ended up a disaster. And I had almost like a fucking acid trip on stage, and it was all prescription drugs. It was just a bad combination. And I abandoned the band on stage and locked myself in the dressing room and wouldn't come out. And the show was a disaster. And I was going to quit until we were obligated to do one more week in a bar up north. And for some reason, I was on stage, same feeling, went side stage to try and throw up or whatever. And then I had a discussion with myself, and I actually, sounds silly, but I gave myself permission. I said, okay, fuck it. If you're going to be sick, just be sick.
Just do it. Let it rip.
Just do it. And I never was. And so that I overcame that squeamishness. Yes, I've been nervous since then, but it's usually just that kind of adrenaline where as long as the equipment works and you're feeling healthy and let's go.
Yeah.
But if any combinations, someone came into the dressing room years ago and said, the system might not work very well, you know, you can be nervous, but other than that, no, it's my job.
Any pre-game rituals before a show? Like,
yeah, I go through this this little visual. It's just a visualization thing. So whatever I'm wearing that night, I see myself in my mind in that gear, and I see myself up on stage, and I just kind of I give myself a rally round and a bit of a slap on the thigh and give it a yes and walk out there and do it.
Go get them. Yeah.
Go get them. Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah. That is
now, in let's see if I have this right. You suffered a stroke. Sorry, dogs are everywhere. You suffered a stroke. Was that 85?
2015.
2015.
Okay.
My stroke was 7 years ago.
7 years ago. And then it was about how long before you fully recovered? And what did you do? Like, I know there was some paralysis on right side.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that? What did you do?
So I had my stroke. I was recording my solo album, the cover one, 80 to 90 Rewind. My wife and daughter were gone, so I was slamming it in the studio. Probably, you know, when the cat's away, right? You know, she would have been all over me to take a break. But we were probably doing 14 hours a day in the studio. And on the last song, the last syllable of the last song, my assistant and my singer went home. And I remember feeling so tired that I sat in the chair at the kitchen, maybe having a beer or a cup of tea or something. And I didn't even feel like going upstairs to bed. I felt too tired. Anyway, I woke up in the chair in the kitchen, did go up to bed, and I was supposed to go golfing with my son the next day. And I woke up around 7 o'clock to the phone ringing, and it was my son saying, let's go. And I said, you know what? Don't feel like it. And he was like, oh, come on, let's go. So I said, okay. When I got out of bed, my right leg felt like it was asleep. And it was kind of dragging along, and I thought that's all it was. I thought it was asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Had a pee, and then went through the washroom to where my daughter's room was, and she had a little aquarium, and my ritual was to feed the fish. And as I went to feed the fish, my hand just kept flopping. And so I knew something was going on, and my nursing training started to think you're either having a heart attack, you're about to have a heart attack, or you're about to have a stroke. Mm-hmm. But then I went into denial, and I got ready, and my son came, and I said, no, we're going golfing.
Wow.
So we went golfing, and I drove the car. I drove it to the golf course, and we were on the first hole, teed off, went kind of separate ways. Mm-hmm. I actually play a really great approach shot to within this of the cup. And my son shouts, okay, well, that's a gimme.
There's no gimmies.
And I said, no, I'll put it out. And we were standing together, and as I went to putt, and I pulled the putter back, my whole body went, and he caught me. Yeah. And we got me up to the clubhouse. I went to the washroom. He stayed nearby. Asked me if I wanted to go to the hospital. I said, no, let's go home. And I get behind the wheel of the car again. And we're driving home. We needed gas. And we stop at the gas station. And when the guy asked me for the money, I didn't know how to count the money.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that was when my son said, out.
Let's go.
And he took over. We drove to the hospital. they didn't think I was having a stroke. The guy examined me, and then boom, I had not a massive stroke, but I had a full-blown stroke, and I was left completely paralyzed on my right side.
Now, when you were determined to play golf and drive and do everything else that day as this is going on, is that your nature? Like, yeah, I can do it, no big deal,
Yeah.
or was it a denial thing?
I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
And I think it's I'm sure there's a lot of, I think it's a more male, probably all four of you, I'm looking at all four of you, and I wouldn't be surprised if each one of you, and I hope you never go through it, but you'd probably go, oh, fuck this, I'll just keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas a woman would probably be more sensible
Right.
and say, I'm going to get my ass to the hospital.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I was completely paralyzed on my right side, and that lasted for about 3 days. And then about the third or fourth day, my toes started to wiggle a little bit, and my fingers, and then I just went on this massive quest of working at it. I spent hours. trying to take the top off a toothpaste, tube of toothpaste, and put it back on. I would spend hours doing that. Wow. And then when they told me I could go home and have rehab, sort of daycare thing, I said, no, send me to rehab. And I went into a facility for rehab. And then typical me, I booked 2 gigs, 9 months from the time I was in rehab.
Really?
And they sold out. I think, partly because I was the guy for Glass Tiger, and partly because people were saying, "Oh yeah,
let's see what he
I wonder if he'll make it."
Right.
So they sold out, and I made it. I walked out on that stage and did the shows.
Perseverance. This is like the prime example of the show must go on. Like so many times you that you're already giving us examples of this. The show must go on, and you persevere and you keep going. Very good.
Was this at the great?
We toured with Corey Hart 2 years ago, and I had a problem secondary to my stroke, and I passed out and I broke my neck in 2 places 10 days before the Corey Hart tour, and we didn't tell anybody. And it was when, going right back to the beginning, it was when Dean died, and they didn't know I was in hospital with a broken neck, and they asked me if I would eulogize him at the funeral.
Wow.
And so I came off my meds. So I had to lay in bed for 5 days before they could operate on my neck because of my blood thinners. They operated my neck. They put a piece of titanium in my spine, and Corey Hart still doesn't know. Nobody knows. But when I showed up for the funeral to eulogize Dean, I must have looked like death warmed over, and it just reverberated through the whole industry. Wow. So Corey Hart calls me and says, "Alan, what the fuck has happened?" Yeah. And I said, "Well, I broke my neck." He said, "Well, what's that?" I said, I'll be there. Wow.
So, I got this. I'm there. Don't worry about it.
We were asking Tom Cochran and people if they would come out and fill in the gaps, and all I did was I took my assistant with me, and he did everything. He lifted all the suitcases and made sure I got on the plane and off the plane in a wheelchair and a whole bit. And I was on stage in Newfoundland 10 days after I broke my neck, and we did the full tour right across the country.
Crazy.
Show must go on.
So I'm either a maniac or I'm just like, I don't know, brain dead. Or
You're passionate is really somewhat of a word that you could use too. I mean, if you look at it that way, you enjoy going on stage, you enjoy performing. I assume, like, you know, like you must. Everybody always says you have to do what you love to do.
Yeah, and not to sound corny, but I hate letting people down. Mm-hmm. So I'm the type of guy, if you hire me for $1, I'll be there, but I'll give you $10 worth. If you hire me for $10, I'll be there and I'll give you $20 worth. So the idea of the tour being booked and the crew ready and the gear ready and the flights booked and the tickets sold. To give up on that, it just would break my heart.
A lot of responsibility, sure.
Yeah, it would break my heart.
Somebody in the chat said it's because you're Scottish. It's like William Wallace, right?
Yeah.
Tom, you were going to ask him a question?
Yeah, we got a question from Anne Marie. She's a huge fan of yours. She was at your first show after your stroke, I think at the Great Hall in Toronto. Her question is if you can please talk about what that show was like for you and what it took to get there, which you mostly did. And she also recalled that your doctor was even backstage monitoring you.
Yes, I had a full-blown anxiety attack about maybe an hour or so before going on. I went to the washroom to try and talk myself into it, and it turned into a full-blown anxiety attack. And so I knew that he was there. My neurologist was there. So they brought him up to the dressing room, and he sat with me, and he's, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I'm terrified." And I gave him all these sort of symptoms of my anxiety, and he listened to everything. And then my favorite kind of doctor, he paused and he said, "Well, what the fuck do you think you would feel like? You've had a stroke.
Right.
Now shut the fuck up.
Oh.
I'm going to go back downstairs and have a scotch, and my wife and I are waiting for you, and you're going to go on there and you're going to have a great show.
That's great.
I'm going to finish my whiskey." And I said,
"There you go."
"Oh, okay."
This guy's a beauty.
But to answer, I think it was Anne Marie, answer her other question. Outwardly, it was a great show. My voice was on point, and it was great. But I did have these whooshy kind of moments that I'd go for the big note, and I could feel, whoa, you know, which was the same thing on the Corey Hart tour with a broken neck.
Yeah,
it's where your body's fighting to just stay alive and stay awake, but you've got to hit that note on someday. So it's a bit of a mental war. So for me, those two shows were a bit of a struggle, but the payoff was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
The audience were great, and I loved every moment of it. I look back on it fondly.
Over the years, how do you maintain your voice?
I don't.
There's nothing special. You drink your Guinness and you're good.
Scotch.
Guinness.
I just have one of those voices that, as long as I'm healthy,
yeah,
and I don't have a flu or a cold, I'm going to be okay. Now, I do warm-ups and stuff. Right. I sing a lot in the studio, but I don't do any major maintenance, and okay. I enjoy my Guinness, and that's
there. You go.
Nice.
Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Yeah.
There we are.
Can you talk about Diamond's son? And I was watching some videos and trying doing some homework on you. It was called African Sun at the beginning, was it not?
Yep. So Valance and I, on occasion, we get left alone because at the time the guys, Al Connolly and Sam Reed, they were smokers at the time. They're not anymore. So the guys would leave and go for a smoke, and Valance and I would get left alone, and we wrote Someday. We started Someday like that. And so on one of those occasions, he started that great little loop that becomes Diamond Sun.
Yeah.
And I started La La Land, scattered lyrics. But, you know, apartheid, not that it had gone away, but it really had reared its ugly head at the time. I think Sun City and all that shit.
Sun City, yeah, I was going to mention.
And so it was in the forefront of people's minds, and it was in the forefront of my mind. And the lyrics started to take shape. The idea of the giant conglomerate, whatever that is, taking effect and crushing people's spirits, either by monetarily or by race or religion or creed or whatever it is. And so because apartheid was in the forefront, I was singing about African Sun. But then it dawned on me that apartheid was happening right here on our doorsteps, and Glass Tiger had we had done some shows for the men and women of our First Nations, and what we witnessed during that was every bit as important and prevalent as anywhere else in the world.
Right.
So I tried to do what I do with most of my songs. I tried to make it a little more universal. So instead of calling it, Canadian Sun or African Sun, I gave it the inference of diamond representing that entity.
Sure, more of a global.
Whose purpose is to crush. That's how it all came about.
We had a gentleman in our chat, Terry Green, ask, you guys performed for the troops overseas. How did that come about? What was that? What did that feel like?
In around about 1997, I think it was, I was asked if I'd like to go to Bosnia on one of those sort of kind of Bob Hope. You guys are younger than me, but Bob Hope used to have they would go and they'd entertain the troops, and they would take comedians and dancers and that kind of thing. So the troops had never actually, on the Canadian side, had never really gotten, any artist of a bigger name. And the guy who was asking me thought that if he could, they to put a bid in, and if his bid won, then he thought the troops would get a real kick out of it, actually being the guy from Glass Tiger instead of a guy impersonating Glass Tiger. So I said, sure, and he won the bid, and we went to Bosnia during the war, and we entertained the troops. And the whole thing took about 3 weeks of your life. And there was a little honorarium payment that they had, which I didn't care about.
Right.
They gave you an honorarium. You dragged your arse around for 3 weeks. But I got the bug, and I went back again. And then there was another entity called Canada Cares, which was a bit more, it was done more through the government and the troops themselves. And no payment involved. You were donating your time happily, but they got you over there a bit easier, and you were there in a matter of 4 or 5 days, and you would come back. And so I've done about 17 trips to the troops. I've been in Afghanistan, I've been in Kabul and Kandahar 4 or 5 times. I've been in Oman, in Kuwait, in Dubai, Bosnia, up in the Arctic, up north.
Wow.
I've Germany, and I think that's it, but multiple times.
Sure.
Do they prep you? I don't want to say with a weapon or maybe a vest or something. Do they prepare you for?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You get the full gear, protective gear, and you're not trained in any way to fire a gun, but you are sort of mentally trained that these troops will take a bullet for you. So if all hell breaks loose, you listen and you take the orders and do as you're told, and they'll keep you safe.
Wow.
One of the most fascinating things that you might enjoy hearing about is that when you do the likes of Afghanistan, you do evasive landings. So you're in a C-17, which is this gigantic piece of machinery with
Right.
100,000 pounds of gear strapped down in the middle, and you're sitting sideways going that way, and then they do an evasive landing, so they go from like 26,000 feet to 12,000 feet instantaneously, dropping.
Myself in your throat.
Wow. Yeah.
It's heavy,
I bet.
and then when it hits, then it spirals in. So it's like being on the most amazing Disney ride, the likes of which you've never witnessed in your life.
I bet.
Wow.
That's
And then
awesome.
being among the troops, I've done incredibly interesting things with them. They're some of the most selfless people
Yeah.
you'll ever
Of
meet.
course.
I mean, these are the people that would take a bullet for you in the true sense of freedom. Yeah, I enjoy them immensely. I enjoy being with them. I've done a lot of stuff for them with the vets.
Mhm.
I've done a lot of stuff here in Canada as well, in Ottawa.
Right.
Are you
Anywhere else in the world that you haven't been that you would love to have traveled to?
Yeah, we
perform
never
at?
we never did Australia and Japan. We were supposed
Yeah.
to, but it kind of fell to pieces, and we never got. It wasn't our thing. It was a conflict between entities on how we got over there and how we were getting there, and it fell apart because we had really good fans in Australia and Japan.
That's great.
Yeah.
Tom, you have a question?
I do. Oh yeah, you did add me back in. Thank you. So, Alan, you did receive the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal in recognition of your services to Canadian arts and helping children. How did you first hear that you were up for that, and what happened with that?
Well, mine was a little more homegrown because the Honourable Peter MacKay, who served in our government in different aspects of our government. At the time, Peter MacKay was the Minister of National Defence.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing work with victims of violent crime, working with families who had been devastated by violent crime. And we texted the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, and asked him if he would come to our event to meet the families. And he said he couldn't, but he sent a personal check for $1,000 from he and his wife. And he said, I'll be there next year. And we said, okay. And the next year came along, and true to his word, Prime Minister Harper and Peter MacKay came to that event. And I got to know Peter.
Nice.
He's got a great Scottish background. So he was the Minister of National Defence when I did a lot of stuff for the troops. We actually did an Afghanistan trip together. And so when I was up for the Diamond Award from the Queen, Peter was the one that contacted me to tell me that I was up for it.
Nice.
And then he said, come through to Parliament, and he presented it to me in Parliament. So it was really cool.
Nice.
I actually thought he was going to become Prime Minister one day. I was still hoping.
I don't want to get into it, but he should never have lost that election to become the head of the Conservative Party. I'll go to my end knowing that there was some stuff went down. Yeah. And Peter should have won that election, but he didn't.
Yeah, I thought he did. I actually thought he was going to come through. But
he would have made a great Prime Minister, and I still bug the shit out of him to consider going for it.
Go back again, try it. Yep.
Yeah.
Now we have some questions in our chat. Somebody was asking your favorite fellow Canadian band that you got to share the stage with. Who and why?
Oh, I've shared the stage with a few Canadian bands and can consider them great bands, and Tom Cochrane in Glass Tiger, Bare Naked Ladies in Glass Tiger, Platinum Blonde, The Spoons, April Wine. We've all shared stages together.
Love April.
And I consider them all contemporaries and pals, and I support them. I support Canadian music, and I enjoy Randy Bachman, and Burton Cummins and I have done stuff together. It's great. I love it.
To be a fly on the wall for that'd be amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, my
So,
God.
Burton's a character. I mean, talk about stories. Great stories.
Burton Cummings told me a joke when I was working at CKFM 99.9. I swear to this day, I can never repeat the joke that Burton Cummings told me. It would shock a lot of people that Burton Cummings told me the joke. But I guess I don't know him. But I guess for those of you who do, you might, yeah, that's a Burton Cummings joke for sure. But I'll never forget it. I will never forget that day.
All right.
So switching over a little bit and leading over into the solo career. When you decided to do a few of your solo tracks and everything, first of all, what made you decide to do that? Was there anything specific?
Well,
And
finish. Okay, finish.
no, go ahead with that. Let's.
You know, we were on a third album, and you know, the career wanes a little bit, and you know, it takes a little turn this way, and I was getting restless, and I kind of wanted to express myself in exactly how I chose to, and you know, bands are democracies, and everything goes through the ringer of the democracy, and I wanted a little taste of you know, deciding for myself. And so I told the guys I was going to shut it down for a bit, and EMI were interested in signing me as a solo act. So I put 2 CDs out on their label, and always remained on good terms with the band, so much so that Al Connolly and Sam Reed were involved in co-writes on some of my solo stuff. And you know, I fell prey actually to, I mean, my first solo album, Hold On, I think is some of the finest stuff I've ever done. I'm proud of it. But just as I was releasing it as a 40-something male contemporary singer, Alanis Morissette released Jagged Little Pill as a 20-something angry young woman, where everything was, you know, and the album went through the roof. And then, of course, every record company then turned, and all they're looking for
change direction.
Angry young females that want to.
So
that whole trend, and that's the way it goes. And so my solo album kind of got overlooked, but to me, it's one of the best pieces of work I've ever done.
What song would you that you wrote or maybe just performed are you most proud of? Is there a certain song or a couple of songs that?
Well, I mean, My Town would be right up there. I think it just epitomizes just a great piece of storytelling with great melody. And I think that the chorus is delivered in such a way that it's not pointing the finger like this is Alan's hometown, this is Scotland. I think it's done in such a way that universally it makes people think of their upbringing and where they come from.
Sure. Yeah.
Someday is a well-crafted song. More recently, on that solo album, there's a song called So Blind that was a #1 radio hit here in Canada. And then I wrote a song for Glass Tiger called This Is Your Life, which is on the CD we put out called 33, that I think had I written it in the 80s, it would have been a monstrous hit. But of course, the industry's all changed. And so the song is only listened to by, you know, the core Glass Tiger fans. But I think it's a great song.
Did you wrote a song with Joe Cocker or
oh yeah,
Did you get a chance to meet him when that process?
No, unfortunately, we wrote it. Johnny and I wrote it, and it went to Joe in the latter part of his career. He put it out. He made it a hit. I would love to get the chance to go over there and meet him, and unfortunately, he passed away.
Yeah,
suddenly.
I know it was the later on in his career for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I have to. We're 5 minutes away from 90 minutes, and we asked you for 90 minutes of your time, so I don't want to keep you too long. Ton of fans, a lot of questions. I have to ask you a personal question that you have been a part of a family myth for probably the last I'm 50, I'm going to say 35 years. So
a family myth.
His
yeah,
family.
yeah. My family. So hear me out.
Okay.
Raised in Scarborough, right? I got a brother. He was a cousin, but I live with him. I grew up with him, so he's my brother. I got a brother and two sisters. My brother lived in a farmhouse with 4 or 5 other guys out in Newmarket, right? As a young lad, I would go hang out with them, and it would be a big empty farmhouse with the occasional bed, Canadian flag for curtains, and a band set up. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. What is this? Yeah, he says to me, this band, Glass Tiger, wants me to be their guitarist. I said, really? And so not only did he tell me, but he told our other family members. I mean, literally about a year or so ago, one of my other cousins said, remember when he told us he was going to be a member of Glass Tiger? And we laughed. And I'm like, there's no way that that's even possibly true. So my brother's name was Gordy Miller. Ever hear of him?
No.
There you go. So you just proved thank you. You just solved a family legend of my family.
Every Thanksgiving, Bradley's family now can relax at Thanksgiving, and it won't come up.
Just to really bust the myth. So when I joined the guys, that story I told you where, okay, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm not going to be in a band full time. When I got to that band had 2 guitar players already.
And none of them was Gordy Miller.
No.
Okay.
And so when I joined the band, we have these 2 guitar players, Mark Smythe and the other guy, I forget his name. I then gradually oust them out and bring Al Conley in.
Okay.
And there was never any other guitar player ever considered for Glass Tiger other than Al Conley.
Well, I appreciate you clarifying that for me after all these years.
Now, it could have been that he knew somebody that knew the drummer. And, you know.
Look. This is the same guy. His last name was Miller. He showed me a Steve Miller album one time and said, oh, that's our cousin too. Okay. So I'm willing to think he was just a constant bullshitter.
Okay, well, I think he's been bullshitting on that.
Yeah. I also got a phone call one day for him with some guy, and I gave him the phone. And after he spoke to the guy on the phone, he goes, you know who that was? I said, no. Oh, that was Robin Zander from Cheap Trick. And at the time, I thought, why the fuck is Robin Zander calling you in Scarborough? Get out of here. So may he rest in peace, Gordy Miller. But God bless him. He had some great stories.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I know we have a few people watching who have a few questions. They just want to know, are you going to come up with a new album, new book? Any chance of seeing you in Italy or LA or going on tour again?
That was my next question. What is next?
I'm constantly writing. I have all the material to start putting another book together. I just haven't got round to it. Painting has been my big thing these days. I've been painting and being commissioned to paint. I'm involved with a company who isn't chasing NFTs and blockchain and all that stuff, but I'm heavily involved with a company that's going down that road. And my goal would be to create a music platform for musicians and become the antichrist of record companies and publishers and bring it right back where it belongs with the creators. That's my goal.
Mm-hmm.
New album. I have a ton of stuff that has never been heard. That's quite unusual for me. It would surprise you. Bit more kind of Cajun rock kind of a thing. So my assistant and I have been talking about putting it out. You've nothing to lose just by putting it out.
Is it already recorded? Is it already done?
All the demos are done. Some of them are probably far enough along that you could just master them. Some of them will need touched up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's it.
Are you still plan? You still plan on doing concerts, performing?
Oh yeah.
Right.
The Tigers. It's going to be a fairly busy year for us if things stay normal, because the things that we lost last year have been put into this year. I've got a few solo things I'm doing on my own. There's another project. I don't know how much I can give up right now, but there's another musical project that I've been approached about that would be completely different from anything you know me for.
Right.
They would like me involved in it. I think I'd like to be involved in it. It'd be quite unique. And I've got a meeting on that February 8th. But if that comes to fruition, it probably won't take place until 2023.
Nice.
Well, good luck with everything. And if you want to come back
guys.
and talk about it, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Listen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Like I said, as a fan of you and your music over the years, and one thing I just want to mention real quick, I saw a video of you singing to an elderly woman, at a retirement home, if you will. And I remember seeing that. I'm like, that was the point for me. I said, I want to try and get Alan on the show, because
it was a harmless thing that exploded. As you may or may not know, I really stay in touch with my fans as much as I can.
Yeah.
And there's one girl, Lisa Swallow, who has been a fan for years, and she got in touch with me and told me that this elderly lady was a fan, and could she buy a book? And I said, no, tell me where she is and I'll send her a book. So I sent the book, and then in my book I talk about asking for what you want. Just as you asked.
I did, yeah.
Would I come and do the show? You ask, and if I say no, you're no worse off, right? So she asked me, you're doing a gig nearby, would you pop in and give her a hug?
That's great.
I said, sure.
Wow.
So we pulled the tour bus up, and I said to the guys, come on in and meet her.
Mm-hmm.
So we went in, and the funny story is that she was told something special was going to happen, but she had bingo that day, and she didn't want to do anything but do her bingo.
Don't interfere with the bingo.
And they said, but this is really special. And she said, well, it better be better than bingo. And so when I walked in, she was thrilled, and I gave her a hug, and I introduced the band. But we saw this old piano. So we got on the piano. I sang Someday for her. One of the nurses, I think it was Lisa, filmed it on her phone, put it out there, and like 1.5 million views later,
it's phenomenal.
Hit the airwaves, but that's not why we did it, and I would do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. But isn't it amazing?
What a heart, man! What a heart! Wow.
The technology now, as opposed to, could you imagine having what we have now, back in like '86? You know, like when everything was just exploding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would have been
crazy.
I mean, I met Paul McCartney. And I've nothing. I've got an old black and white photograph that's ruined.
Yeah.
Come on. How was that? That's your beginnings. That's your. I was going to say Frank Sinatra. Like I've heard you talk in interviews about Frank Sinatra, but I know Beatles is a huge influence for you. How was that?
It was incredible. I was speakless.
Like he's got to be the nicest man. Like he's got.
When they took me back to meet him, I kept saying, please, please, please don't be an asshole. I've got so much.
Yeah, you don't need your heroes.
Yeah.
And when I walked in the door, he had his back to me, actually. He was talking to someone else from the record company. And the record company said, oh, here's Alan. And he turned around, and Paul McCartney's first words to me were, don't forget me when.
Jesus.
Nice.
Stop it.
Paul McCartney singing your words.
And so we shook hands, but he would say, all right, mate, Paul McCartney. And I just kind of went.
Right.
And when he tried to get his hand away.
Don't let go, please.
And then he split everybody up into two groups. Friends of the Earth, which is his big charity, and Capitol Records over here. He did the thing with Friends of the Earth. Now he's doing photographs with Capitol. And he said, Alan, get in here.
Oh, my
So I
God.
go, okay. And I get in beside him. We take photographs. And as he's walking away from me, I think, if you don't speak to this man, you'll regret this for the rest of your life. So I said, Paul. And he goes, yeah, mate. And I go, fuck, you say Paul. He knows his name. It's amazing. He answers.
Yeah.
So he goes, what is it? And I said, Paul, and I wish I could. I don't know if I can turn my computer.
I would love to see it, yeah.
That's right.
Wow. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
Wings.
To Alan, your friend, Paul McCartney.
Oh, come on.
Nice.
So I said to him, Paul, I have a poster of you here. Would you be kind enough? And he says, sure, mate. So as he's signing it, now it dawns on me, he's hearing my accent for the first time. I've been in his company for 20 minutes. But he's never heard me speak. So he goes, you're Scottish. I said, yeah. He said, Glasgow or Edinburgh? I said, Glasgow. Rangers or Celtic?
Right.
Uh-oh.
Rangers. So he says to me, Alan, I wish I had one of my tour shirts here. I would give it to you. He said, because they've made a mistake on the back of it. It's the Paul McCartney tour. It says London, England, Manchester, England, whatever, Birmingham, Scotland. I beg your pardon. Sorry. Birmingham, England, Glasgow, England. He said, it's a misprint.
Really?
Misprint.
Yeah. And I thought, oh man, I wish you had that T-shirt to give to me.
Yeah.
You know. And then Linda came in and said, okay, sweetheart, we have to go. And Paul said, Alan, really nice meeting you, mate. And I said, Paul, what can I say?
Yeah.
That was it.
Well, he's going to be joining us next week, so I hope you can join us.
That would be great.
That would be nice. I emailed him. We'll see. Can't hurt to ask.
You know, it's one of the privileges. I've met some incredible people, you know, Robin Williams and Sean Connery and Robert Duvall and Tina Turner and on. And as long as people are, you know, as long as they're decent, kind, caring human beings, you know, Willie Nelson, and, you know, that's all I care about.
Sure.
You know, if you're an asshole, you're an asshole. And who wants to meet assholes no matter who they are? So I've been very, very lucky. I've met great people through the years. And I only hope that they think the same of me.
I was just about to say, and we are very thankful that we had the chance to do this with you, because you are absolutely a fantastic person. Just
thank you.
A lot of these stories.
You're happy you didn't meet an asshole.
Don't meet your heroes, they tell us. Don't meet your heroes. I'm like,
I do this show with 3 assholes every Monday, so it's nice to meet one guy who's not.
I resemble it.
Yeah, you do. But anyway,
thank you guys.
Thank you so much. Real quick, Super Bowl prediction, because I see you got a Patriots hat on. What do you got?
Well, my heart is with the Bengals. You know, when it looked like I didn't think my boys were going to come out of Buffalo alive, and
right.
I didn't know they were going to get their asses handed to them the way they did. But I have a soft spot in my heart for the Cleveland Browns and for the Cincinnati Bengals. And so my heart is with the Bengals on the Super Bowl.
Yep. I'm always rooting for the underdog myself. So anyway.
But Alan, do you want to promote your, you have an Instagram that you go on live a lot. Do you want to promote that?
Yeah. I mean, I do my podcast most Sundays when I do it on Instagram. It's called Frew, like my name, Through the Looking Glass, and people can connect with me. I do it on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram, I go live on Instagram on the Sundays, and I've had fabulous guests on all through the last couple of years, and I've had football players and baseball players, Formula One drivers and musicians, a couple of actors. This is a great time. And it all started, sometimes I don't have any guests on because I just like being with people.
Mhm.
And that's how it started, actually. It started innocently, where I went on this thing called Instagram Live just to ask people if they were okay during COVID. There was this old lady in Manchester, and she came on. And it was just the two of us, and I said,
That's great.
"How you doing?" And she said, "I'm okay, son. How are you doing?" and then some people saw this guy from Glass Tiger was on, so they kind of came on.
Sure.
Before you knew it, I had a show.
That's great. That's
Something
great.
like this.
Yeah, that's how we all got. It's because of Twitch, the platform.
Yeah.
We tried Instagram, they cut us off. We tried Facebook, they kick us off. So everybody's now on Twitch.
I don't know why they would do that. Fuck.
Yeah.
Come on over to Twitch, Alan. Come on over to Twitch.
I might just do that.
There you go.
Okay, lads, I need to go for a pee.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, Alan.
Thank you again. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's hear it from. Come on, round of applause.
Continued success with all your careers and with the show. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, sir. We'll be in touch.
You.
All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Oh, get out of it.
Look at that. Look at us, huh?
There you go.
How was that? Here, cheers,
what a
boys.
fantastic gentleman. Like, what a fantastic. Cheers, guys.
Good for us. Cheers.
And cheers to Alan. And
Just like you said, right? If you don't ask, you never know.
Yeah, the stories, I love it because the chat was also saying like they love the stories. I think Vegas said it. He's like, let's do a part 2. He wants to hear more stories. You know, that was fantastic.
Yeah, I could easily do another hour and a half with him. Just ask. There's so many questions that I had jotted down that I never got to.
Yeah.
He has a fan. He has a fan page on Facebook here. So feel free to post it. So we'll put it up here for other people to follow it if you want.
Tom, I was going to ask you, can you put that in the chat? And also if somebody has his Instagram link as well, if you guys can put that in the chat as well.
All right. So what I'd like to do, if you guys are cool with keeping this thing going.
Why not?
Yeah. So
Dude,
I want
you got 58 people. I wouldn't stop it. I'll be honest. It's up to you.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to stop the interview portion. Everybody just sit tight a minute. Give us a minute. I already have the link. I go grab another beer. I already have the other link. So hang on. I'm sending it. Hold on. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Bear with me, everybody. Hold on. Okay. Here it is.
Now, it was a great interview, and he was such a great man. So I thank you. And I would take one of his paintings. Just
absolutely. And he did one of Jersey, I heard. It was in the chat before. So all right, so I'm going to end this, and I'm going to come right back. So everyone sit tight where you are. You guys, the link is in your Facebook Messenger. Just hop on back. Thanks, everybody, for watching us. That was great. We'll be right back. Just stay tuned. Do not leave.